Welcome back. Tonight, we are stepping far away from the noise of the modern world, traveling back deep into the ancient record of the Earth to walk alongside the largest, quietest giant to ever roam the land. If you find comfort in these travels through time, I welcome you to subscribe, leave a like, or drop a thought in the comments. Your support helps this space grow, leading other tired wanderers toward a peaceful night's rest. Now, settle in, get comfortable. We are going back 30 million years. Not to a world of fire and mass extinction. Not to the violent drama of the asteroid or the thundering of tyrannosaurs. We are going somewhere quieter than that. 30 million years ago, the world was in the middle of a long, slow exhale. The fierce tropical heat of the Oligocene epoch had begun to cool, slowly, the way a stone cools after a summer day. The planet's temperature was dropping degree by degree over millions of years. Great ice sheets were forming quietly at the poles. The ancient Tethys Sea, a warm, shallow ocean that had once stretched across the middle of the world, was retreating, shrinking, pulling back to reveal new land. The continent of Asia was rising, not dramatically, not all at once, but the land that would one day become China, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, it was settling into its shape. Rivers carved paths through plains of red and ochre soil. Forests of broad-leaf trees stretched across hillsides still green from seasonal rains. In the lowlands, wide floodplains spread out beneath pale skies, broken only by stands of ancient trees whose names we will never know. This is the Oligocene, the age of transition. It is not a famous time. It does not carry the romance of the Jurassic or the drama of the Cretaceous. It sits quietly between two more celebrated ages, the Warmocene before it, and the Miocene that would come after, like a long, unhurried afternoon between two more eventful days. But it was alive, and it was vast, and somewhere in its open woodlands, beneath a sky still warm enough to carry the memory of older, hotter ages, the largest land mammal that would ever walk the earth was grazing in the quiet of an Oligocene morning. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a forest. The trees around you are tall, 30, 40 feet, their canopies filtering the light into pale green columns that shift and drift with a slow morning breeze. The air smells of warm earth and distant water and the green, living smell of things growing. And then you see it. It is standing at the edge of the tree line, perhaps 100 meters away. And your first thought, even knowing what you know, is that it cannot possibly be real. It is enormous. Not the way a large animal is enormous. Not the way an elephant surprises you with its size when you first stand beside one. This is something else entirely. Something that rearranges your understanding of scale. At the shoulder, it stands nearly 5 meters tall. That is the height of a single-story building. That is a creature whose back you could not reach from the roof of a car. Its body is long, over 7 meters from the tip of its blunt nose to the base of its tail. And its legs are like the pillars of an ancient temple, round, solid, planted into the earth with the certainty of things that have no reason to hurry. It has no horns. That is the first thing that surprises you. For a relative of the rhinoceros, and this creature is indeed a distant cousin of the rhinos alive today. It is entirely without armament, no horn on the nose, no ridges on the skull. Just a long, deep head, held at the end of an elegant neck, and a pair of dark, unhurried eyes that sweep the canopy with an expression of absolute calm. This is Paraceratherium. Its name means loosely, near the hornless beast, a reference to an older, smaller relative that paleontologists had named before they found this one. When the first bones were pulled from the rock of what is now Pakistan in the early years of the 20th century, the scientists who held them could not quite believe what they were seeing. Bones from a mammal, clearly a mammal, warm-blooded, from a world not so different from ours, but bones that suggested a creature 3 times heavier than the largest African elephant alive today. They named it and argued about it, and gave it several names over the following decades. Baluchitherium, the giant of Baluchistan. Eventually, the name Paraceratherium settled into permanence, the way large things eventually settle, with a slow inevitability. The animal you are watching raises its head. That neck, long, deep-muscled, powerful, lifts until the skull is perhaps 6 meters from the ground. And then, with a deliberateness that is almost meditative, it wraps its upper lip around a cluster of high branches and strips the leaves with a single, slow pull. The upper lip is prehensile, flexible and grasping, like a hand almost. Scientists believe it functions something like the lip of a modern giraffe, or the abbreviated trunk of a tapir, able to curl around a branch and hold it while the teeth do their work. It was not flashy. It was not designed for display. It was simply efficient. A quiet, elegant solution to the problem of being very large in a world full of tall trees. The Paraceratherium eats slowly. There is no urgency in it. No competition for these high branches, because nothing else can reach them. No predator circling at a respectful distance, because at this size and at this age in the Oligocene, there is nothing in this landscape large enough to threaten it. The hynodon roams these plains, a carnivore the size of a large lion, with bone-crushing jaws and the persistence of deep hunger. It is fearsome by any measure, but it knows, the way animals know things without knowing that they know them, that a creature of this size is not prey, not worth the risk, not worth the expenditure of energy against those pillar-like legs, those great swinging feet that could crush a predator's skull with a single misplaced step. And so the Paraceratherium eats undisturbed, leaf by leaf, branch by branch, moving slowly along the canopy edge, consuming what it needs. And it needs an extraordinary amount, in the unhurried silence of the morning. There is something deeply restful about a creature that size living that quietly. We tend to associate great size with great noise, with dominance and aggression, with the need to announce oneself to the world. But the Paraceratherium has no such need. It is already the largest thing in this landscape. Every other animal already knows it is here. The ground, in a small but measurable way, registers its footfall. The trees respond to its presence, the branches it chooses, the ones it leaves, the paths worn softly into the soil by decades of the same slow, deliberate walking. It does not need to roar. It does not need to charge or posture or display. It simply exists at a scale that makes announcement unnecessary. Scientists who study the likely behavior of Paraceratherium, drawing comparisons to modern elephants and rhinoceroses, the large mammals whose biology most closely echoes what we can reconstruct, believe it lived a largely solitary existence. Females traveled with their young for a time. A calf, born already weighing 1/4 of a ton, its legs unsteady, its eyes wide and dark in the morning light, would stay close to its mother for years, 3 years, perhaps more, learning the landscape, learning the paths to water, learning in the way that large-brained mammals learn, which trees held the sweetest leaves, and where the seasonal rains came first, and what the particular quality of an Oligocene evening felt like when the air cooled and the plains went amber. The mother moved carefully when her calf was young. Not quickly. She never moved quickly, not really, but with a particular kind of attentiveness that any parent of any species might recognize. A slight angling of the body to keep the calf close. A pause at the edge of a river crossing, waiting for the calf to find its footing on the stones before moving forward. The world was large and the calf was small. At least, small by the standards of what it would become. And for a few years, before the calf grew into the indifferent safety of its own enormous size, the mother was its landscape. Think about that for a moment. The largest land mammal that has ever lived. A creature whose shoulder reached the height of a building, was, for a short window of its life, vulnerable, was dependent, was guided through the world by something larger than itself that knew where to go. There is something in that which is not so different from being human. We are all, for a time, small things in the care of something larger. And then we grow, and then we carry others for a while. And then we are large and quiet and alone in our own landscape, finding our own paths to water. The Oligocene world that Paraceratherium moved through was changing. Even then, even 30 million years ago, the climate was in the slow process of transformation. The great forests that had dominated the earlier Ocene were thinning. The planet was cooling. In their place at the edges of the old forest zones, grasslands were beginning their long, quiet expansion across the face of Asia. The Tibetan plateau was still low then, relatively flat, a broad, elevated land rather than the dramatic mountain wall it would one day become. This meant the great interior of Asia was still reachable by moisture from the oceans, still seasonally green, still capable of supporting the enormous browsing appetite of the world's largest land animal. Paraceratherium followed these seasonal patterns. Scientists believe it migrated across vast territories, perhaps 1,000 square kilometers or more in a single year, following the rains, following the flush of new leaf growth that comes in the wake of wet seasons, moving slowly across a landscape that was itself slowly changing, the way all things change when the time scale is long enough, gradually, then irreversibly. Imagine the path it walked, from the wooded hillsides of what is now China, westward across the Great Plains toward the Balkans, from the subtropical forests of Pakistan northward into the drier scrublands of Kazakhstan. Fossil remains of Paraceratherium have been found scattered across more than a dozen modern countries: China, India, Pakistan, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, Georgia. Each of those bones represents a life, an individual animal who breathed and fed and moved through its world, who felt, in whatever way large mammals feel things, the warmth of morning sun on that massive back, the relief of finding water in a dry season, the specific satisfaction, if satisfaction is not too human a word, of high branches giving way to that slow, patient upper lip. Each bone is a life, and we hold them in our hands 30 million years later and try to reconstruct the animal from the architecture of what remains. There is a particular kind of awe that comes not from enormity, but from distance. Not the awe of standing beside something vast and feeling small, but the awe of standing in the present and trying to reach backward through time, past everything that has lived and died and been forgotten, to touch something real. Paraceratherium is real. It walked on this earth. It left footprints, none of which have survived, but which existed, pressed into the soft mud of Oligocene riverbanks for a moment before the water filled them in. It breathed air that contained the same elements as the air in this room tonight. It looked out across landscapes that no human eye has ever seen, with eyes that perceived light and color and movement in ways we can only approximate. It was here, and then it was gone. The extinction of Paraceratherium was not dramatic. There was no asteroid, no sudden volcanic catastrophe, no single morning when the world ended and everything changed. It was slower than that, quieter than that, the way most endings are quiet when you are living through them without knowing they are endings. Around 23 million years ago, at the boundary between the Oligocene and the Miocene, the climate of Central Asia shifted. The forests continued their long retreat. Grasslands expanded, dry and open, across the territories that Paraceratherium had moved through for 11 million years. The tall trees it depended on, the ones with the high canopy, the soft leaves, the branches it had been reaching toward since before memory, grew scarcer. And then, from the west came something new. Early ancestors of the elephant family, proboscideans, large and adaptable, were beginning their spread into Asia. They were different browsers, different in the way they changed the landscape around them, pushing over trees, stripping bark, altering the forest structure in ways that reduced the canopy Paraceratherium needed. It is a quiet theory, unproven, still debated by paleontologists who turn these questions over carefully, like stones in a riverbed. But there is something almost poignant in the idea that the arrival of another giant, another gentle giant, may have tipped the balance of a world already quietly tilting. The last Paraceratherium walked through a landscape that was no longer quite built for it. Its kind did not die in a single generation. It thinned the way populations thin when the conditions that sustained them slowly withdraw. A herd becomes a smaller herd. A smaller herd becomes scattered individuals. Scattered individuals, large, slow reproducing, requiring vast territories, do not find each other often enough. And then, in a silence no one recorded, it was gone. 11 million years. That is how long Paraceratherium survived on this earth. For perspective, our own species, Homo sapiens in our current form, has existed for perhaps 300,000 years. Paraceratherium walked this planet for 37 times longer than we have. It outlasted changes in climate. It crossed continents. It fed its young. It moved through monsoon seasons and dry seasons and the slow millennial shift of the land beneath its feet. And in the end, the world simply changed in ways it could not follow. Not through any failure of the animal, not through any inadequacy, simply because the world that had shaped it, that had made it what it was, gradually became a different world. The bones are still there. In museums in Karachi and Beijing and Moscow and London, pieces of Paraceratherium still exist. Skull fragments, limb bones, vertebrae. Not a complete skeleton. No complete skeleton has ever been found. What we know of this animal we have assembled from parts. From the patient, careful work of scientists who held a shoulder blade from Pakistan beside a leg bone from China and asked, quietly, persistently, "What were you? What were you? And what was your life like? And what did you feel when the last trees thinned around you?" We will never fully know. That is part of what makes paleontology, at its deepest, not just a science but a kind of devotion. A commitment to bearing witness to things that cannot speak for themselves, to keeping the record, as faithfully as stone and inference allow, of the extraordinary lives that preceded ours. The Paraceratherium you have been watching tonight, the one at the edge of the forest in the pale green morning light of the Oligocene, is finishing its meal. Slowly, unhurriedly, it begins to move. The footfalls are soft, softer than you might expect, the way the footfalls of very large animals often are. The weight distributed, absorbed, the earth receiving it with a patience equal to the creature's own. It moves between the trees, and for a moment it is in shadow, a vast shape moving through the dappled dark of the forest interior. And then it emerges on the other side into the open plain beyond, and the morning light falls full upon it. It does not hurry. It does not look back. It simply continues the way all things continue until they cannot. One slow, certain step after another, across a world that is always changing and always, in the deepest places, the same. You are breathing slowly now. Your body is heavy and warm. There is nothing you need to do. The Oligocene morning is 30 million years behind us. The forests where Paraceratherium fed are now stone and soil, and the deep geological record of a world that held its breath for a long time before becoming the one we know. But the silence in which it moved, that vast, unhurried, ancient silence that has never really left. It is in the quiet between your thoughts. It is in the slowness of deep breathing. It is in the particular stillness that comes just before sleep, when the body finally remembers that it does not need to carry the day any further. You can set it down now, all of it. The largest creature that ever walked the land did so without urgency, without armor, without the need to prove its size to anyone. It simply moved through its world, slowly, quietly, enough. The Oligocene plains are peaceful tonight. The trees are tall. The air is warm. Somewhere in the distance, something enormous moves through the morning light without a sound. And the world is very old and very still, and there is nothing to be afraid of. Nothing at all. If this quiet journey into deep time brought you some peace tonight, a gentle like, a soft subscribe, or a single word left below means the world. It helps other weary minds find their way here, one drifting soul at a time.